joy, laughter, and happiness. I had a rumor that the station you're searching for is right here. I mean, here. 98.3 Mainland FM. The sound of Lagos.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us, man, there is nothing, we are starving. We should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join 괶ᴜᴜ as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial. Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you your next as we discuss the situations.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's always a pleasure to be with you on radio, Mondays through to Fridays from 4 p.m. all the way to 5:30 p.m. About 90 minutes of interesting conversations, important conversations, if I might add, conversations that bother around politics, economics, socio-political and socio-economic issues as well. Basically, anything that is considered a situation in the country, best believe this is a platform where we can address the situation. Aside from addressing it and providing you with insight and expert opinion on the subject matter, we also allow you an avenue to, or an opportunity rather, to call in to communicate with us and give us your perspective on the matters that have been discussed. Do you agree with the perspective of our expert? Do you have a contrary opinion or maybe even a contradicting opinion? This is a place where you are allowed to share your opinions without any judgment. Definitely, you should join the program on Facebook. That's for those of you who are unable to listen to us directly via the radio. As long as you have access to the internet, you can be a part of the program. We're social, live on Facebook and on YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. If you want to be more specific on our Facebook platform, just check facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM. We're also available on Be a Part of the program. This is the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3. Scarcity, the queues which are now fortunately subsiding. There is another matter that has taken the country by storm, the cybersecurity levy that a lot of experts have given their 2 cents about. There's been reaction from the public amongst other things, and so we decided to use that particular information as like a reward. We're going to be looking at multiple taxation in the country, or multiplicity of taxes, from the aspect of compliance. How willing are Nigerians when it comes to the payment of taxes, and what are the expected rewards if we pay these taxes? What do we expect to get back in return? Of course, I'm going to have an expert join us to talk to us about what the law says, how we can interpret the laws that guide tax legislation, tax reforms, etc., etc. I will of course introduce my guest in just a bit, but as you know is our practice here, before we delve into any conversation whatsoever, we like to give you some sort of a backstory, some sort of foundation, so that for every question that is being answered on radio, you have some sort of preliminary understanding of the primary or the core of the conversation. Now, like a cat with 9 lives, and allow me to use that particular idiom. The multiplicity of taxes have refused to end, and it continues to wreak havoc on stakeholders, on the average citizen, on businesses, of course, and even households in general. Amid the groaning within the country with the removal of the fuel and electricity subsidy, the upward review of the electricity tariff, which they reduced by 8% yesterday. There's the 33% headline inflation. There's the almost 40% food inflation. The CBN, that's the Central Bank of Nigeria, 2 days ago in a memo ordered all commercial banks to impose a 0.5% levy on some electronic transactions. Now, this particular fund is supposed to be transmitted to the Office of the National Security Advisor for the purpose of cyber security. This latest levy is just one of the many charges imposed on bank customers. There's the stamp duty, there's the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System charge, there's the value added tax, amongst others. And this is apart from the charges imposed by the banks, like the maintenance fee, the SMS charges. I know the majority of you know about the ATM charge, etc. Now, this news have been met with heavy condemnation by Nigerians and even the labor unions, the NLC and the TUC, that are threatening, as always, an industrial action might be in sight if there's no review or a new consideration regarding this 0.5% cybersecurity levy that is now being imposed on Nigerians. We intend this evening on the Situation Room to examine, among other things, the burden of multiplicity of taxes, why there's multiplicity of taxes, the impact on tax compliance and revenue yield. We'll also be discussing the growing debate on the need to streamline the number of taxes in Nigeria, that's in view of the low yields of many of these taxes. And of course, joining me this evening, 90 minutes to venture into the conversation of the incidence of multiple taxation in the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. His name is Dr. MUDA YUSUF. Good evening to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening. My pleasure to be with you.
Of course. Thank you. So the topic, multiplicity of taxes, we're going to be talking about compliance and also the expected reward, what Nigerians expect of this many taxes that they're being asked to pay. But then let's start from the beginning. Taxation as a concept, of course, is not the monster that unfortunately it's now being known as. Countries across the world have they depend very heavily on tax revenue to diversify the economy. We are an economy that have relied very heavily on crude oil revenue. And this administration, upon assuming office, has said we might not be able to rely solely on crude oil. And one way we can explore is by taxation. Let's increase our tax revenue. So let's talk about that decision that was made by the government and how you would analyze this particular or that particular plan of the government on the people so far.
Yeah, thank you very much. Taxation normally in practically all countries of the world, taxation is the major source of revenue. To be able to run government, very important. Its mandate to the people. And the one thing about taxation is that essentially and to a large extent, it's like structured in a way to be able to extract a lot more from those who have the capacity to pay, to be able to support those who don't have the capacity to pay. In other words, normally, those who earn a lot more, or those who consume a lot more, those who spend a lot more, normally pay more taxes. So in a way, it's a way of, getting the rich to subsidize the poor. That is the basic principle of taxation.
Right.
So from a principle point of view, it's something that is important. And what the administration said at the very beginning was not to impose more taxes. And that was said repeatedly. What they said was that we are going to ensure more efficient administration, of taxes, to make the tax administration more efficient. And one way the administration has promised to do that is to leverage more on technology. More or less replicating what was done in Lagos, at the center. So that was the focus. And you can see that even now, the revenue of government has increased. That's in addition to some of the reforms that have also, boosted government revenue.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. Now, Zach Adedeji, the chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, he says there are leakages because several government agencies collect revenues. He claims that in Nigeria, we have more than 62 agencies that are collecting revenue, one way or the other, on behalf of the federal government. And he has spoken about finding a way to establish like a single window of revenue collection so that we can prune these leakages. Can we talk about how there is no harmonization of some sort? I remember that a committee was set up sometime last year to harmonize the taxes, about 190 different taxes that Nigerians are paying through different channels. For example, you spoke about, the informal sector that is largely unregulated. They pay some unreceipted taxes. A certain individual just walks up to them, asks them to pay a particular levy. They get no receipts, and there is no trace whatsoever that money will be remitted to the government coffers. So let's talk about how we have multiple agencies who are now taking the responsibility or commandeering the responsibility of the FIRS, and how that has been, should I say, a catalyst to the incidence of multiple taxes that the average Nigerians have to pay.
Now, there are two issues from what we have said. The first is the issue of leakages in government revenue as a result of not having effective oversight over the collection of revenues and how those revenues are remitted. That was what led to the decision to set up the single treasury account, where all government revenues are channeled to. From there then individual agencies can now, because before now, you have all these agencies having so many accounts. So some not even to the knowledge of the federal inland revenue, or even to the knowledge of government. So it became very difficult to even monitor the revenue that are being collected. But since the introduction of the treasury single account, that problem has been drastically reduced. And under this administration, I think that policy has been further deepened to ensure that all revenues go directly into the federation account. After which I think about 50% of whatever they are able to generate to be given to them. And that has boosted government revenue to a large extent. And it has also to a large extent reduced leakages in terms of accountability for the taxes that these agencies collect. But I must admit that too many agencies are collecting too many taxes.
Right.
Even some regulatory agencies who are supposed to just regulate, practically all of them are imposing one form of taxes or the other. And that is why the government set up this Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reform, headed by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. And the whole idea, and the committee has told us severally, is to streamline the number of taxes. Right now, if you count all the taxes that people pay, go as high as maybe 30 or even more. So the whole idea is to streamline the taxes, and the committee has told the nation that we are going to reduce the taxes to single digits. In other words, it's going to be less than 10. So that is what the citizens and the stakeholders in the economy were expecting. That's reducing the number of taxes, only for us to have this latest issue about this cybercrime. So in terms of streamlining, there's a whole lot of efforts that are going on, especially at the federal level. But the federal government also don't have too much control over the states, over the local government. So what we expect is that at the state level, the state governments will take a cue from what is happening at the federal level. And I imagine that a lot of conversation has been taking place. We have what we call the Joint Tax Board, which consists of all the states of the federation, their internal revenue service. And they discuss on the need to streamline to reduce these taxes. But so far, I'm not sure we have been able to make much progress, especially at the subnational level and at the local government level.
Right.
Because a lot of those taxes, particularly all those nuisance taxes, all manner of characters wearing all manner of reflective jackets, barricading the roads, doing all manner of terrible things, those things still exist. So it's still a problem as we speak.
Right. Well, thank you very much. For those of you still joining us, be aware, like I said earlier, we're streaming the program live on our Facebook platform. So please join us there, Facebook and YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM. The topic is on multiplicity of taxes, compliance and expected reward. We have the privilege of speaking to Dr. MUDA YUSUF, the former Director General of the Lagos Chambers of Commerce and Industry, an economist and the CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. Now, Dr. MUDA YUSUF, Adam Smith, well, the father of economics, as many people would like to call him, he spoke about the 4 canons of taxation. He spoke about equity, certainty, convenience, and efficiency. Of course, efficiency is a conversation that we could, if we start now, we would need 100 days to talk about how efficient the taxes that the government have collected has been, or more or less non-efficient. There's the convenience, which is what I want us to focus on right now. 2 days ago, we got the memo from the CBN, 0.5% on electronic transfers that is supposed to be remitted to the Office of the NSA for cybersecurity or cyber protection. And we've seen the backlash that this particular memo has incited or elicited amongst the ordinary Nigerians. They're asking questions. Why should we be the one to bear the burden of cyber protection? The banks should be the one to take care of that. And more importantly, why is this money being remitted to the Office of the NSA? It's too much money, in addition to all of the SMS charges, the NIPSS, amongst all the other many charges that we have to pay to access our own money. So let's talk about convenience, the convenience of these taxes and the influence that it has on tax compliance, and also the trust deficits that is now very evident between the people and the federal government.
Now, there are a number of issues here. There is the issue of equity. I think that is even more important. Equity in the sense that, just as you said, a lot of taxes are already being paid, either by individuals or by companies. If you take companies, for instance, companies already pay what they call company tax. Yes. Businesses and individuals already pay the value-added tax we call VAT. Companies or business already pay tertiary education tax. They pay stamp duty. There is the National Information Technology Development Tax. There is Police Trust Fund Tax. There is NASENE tax. And in the pipeline, we have the NYSE tax. Yeah. We have the tertiary healthcare tax.
The telecom tax.
Yes, you have the telecom. Then at the state level, we have all manner of taxes. Then, just as you said, many regulatory agencies of government, especially those who are interfacing with businesses, all of them have one form of fees, licensing fees, renewal fees, all manner of charges that they also impose on businesses. Now, if you take all of these things together, this is a whole lot in terms of pressure of taxes. And this is what necessitated the setting up of the tax reform committee in the first place, to prune down this number of taxes. So from an equity point of view, the burden of tax is a bit high. Not even a bit, it's a lot on businesses. So that is why some of us feel that this is one tax too many. I'm talking of this cyber crime levy. And let me also say that this levy is not part of the banking levy. This one is not a levy by the banks like charges on SMS, email, and all of that. No. This one is a tax coming from the National Assembly to support cyber crime, which is being managed by the Office of the National Security Advisor. So the banks and the CBN are only implementing a law. This is not at the instance of the central bank or the banks. I think we need to make that distinction. But for whatever it is still too much of a burden. And to the extent that it is a huge burden, of course, it also creates a problem of convenience. But more importantly, it creates a problem of equity. And you are talking of this kind of tax. All the other taxes I mentioned, most of them are taxes on your profit. In other words, you have done your business, you have deducted your cost, and whatever is left as profit is what to be taxed. Where this is different and even more painful is that it is a tax on all your transactions. Because most of your transactions are electronic. I'm talking of payments.
Yes.
It's a tax on everything. So whether you are running a business that is already bleeding or a business that is already dying, whether you are a poor man who just wants to, make a transfer to somebody from whom you bought bread or you bought noodles, you are going to be subject to this kind of tax. So that makes it even more inequitable. And if you look at the amount involved, it's a lot. In 2023, according to the NIBSS, that's the Nigerian Bank for International Settlement also, the total e-payment, that's electronic payment, in 2023, under that switch alone, was 600 trillion. 0.5% of 600 trillion is about 3 trillion. Even if you discount that and say, okay, let us waive those exemptions that they give, you still be left with about 2 trillion. Are you going to be using 2 trillion to be fighting cybercrime? Of course, that is humongous. That is humongous. And if you take the industry data, which is published by the central bank, the latest industry data that is on their website is for 2022. The total amount of electronic payment was 1,550 trillion. 1,550 trillion. That's a lot of money. 0.5% of that is 7.75 trillion. So if we make allowance for even the exemptions, we still be ending up with about 5 trillion. How much is the total budget for defense and security? How much is the total budget for infrastructure? Total budget for infrastructure by the federal government in 2024 budget was about 1.3 trillion. Total budget for defense, police, Navy, Army, Air Force in 2024 budget was 3.3 trillion. Not to talk of health and education. Then you now go and be talking of raising almost 3-4 trillion to fight cybercrime. So in terms of even the proportionality of it, there is a big issue around it. So that is why I feel that there is a need to have further conversation on this matter. I believe that the implementation should be suspended. I believe that even the National Assembly ought to have engaged the citizens. There should have been proper consultation because they are representatives of the people. They should have discussed with the people, get the people's perspective, speak to stakeholders before they pass this into law. I'm not sure any stakeholder was even aware of when this thing was considered and just suddenly passed into law. Because the law of the National Assembly. The National Assembly too has not been fair to us as it is. Because they are our representatives. They are supposed to represent us, and all of us cannot be in National Assembly. So if you have this kind of law coming up, they should have, publicize it very well and invite the citizens to come and, express their perspectives or their views on the law. But that doesn't happen. All we just saw was this circular from the CBN that is going to be deducting 0.5%. And it's going to affect businesses. It's going to affect the cost of goods and services. And at a time when we are grappling with a lot of issues, the current reforms is imposing a lot of hardship and pain on the people. Even those reforms are necessary. But we also need to give whatever we are doing, we need to give it in human faith. So that is my view on this particular levy that has just been introduced. I think we should suspend the implementation and have further consultation.
Right. Dr. MUDA, Yusuf, I understand you have other commitments, which is why I'm trying to rush through most of these questions as fast as I can. So for those of you listening, please bear with us. There's been argument, especially from the side of the federal government, that Nigerians don't pay as much tax as they think they're paying, at least in comparison to the rest of the world, where information is only 41 million Nigerians actually pay taxes of the over 200 million people that are in Nigeria. In fact, they compared us to Ivory Coast, for example. The 2023 report by the World Population Review determined that Ivory Coast actually is the highest taxed country in Africa and the highest in the world when it comes to personal income tax. But for Nigeria, when it comes to the company tax, for example, we pay one of the highest in the world, about 34%, as opposed to the 27.6% tax rate, average corporate tax rate for Africa. Right. So the federal government or a representative of the federal government are mostly arguing, or supporters of the government will mostly argue, that we don't even pay that much of a tax for Nigerians to be complaining about this aggressive tax revenue. So the question I'm leaning towards is that, do you believe that if Nigerians actually saw the dividend of the many taxes that they're paying, if they go out there, the roads are clean, there are no potholes, they open their tap, there's potable water, there is public transportation, there is electricity, they're able to run their businesses without having to struggle, do you think that the kickback from Nigerians might not be as bad as this? So is the problem really the amount of taxes, or do you think the anger stems from the fact that there is nothing, there is no infrastructure that is commensurate with the humongous taxes that were being made to pay?
Well, I think it's the two. You know, the expression of disagreement or non-approval of this policy. First is the fact that there's also a moral issue in taxation. That's talking about taxation generally. Because when you impose tax, you must give evidence. You know, you must be accountable. It's an accountability issue. When you pay tax and you see that some government officials are using the tax to go and buy SUV of 150 million each, 160 million each. You hear stories of corruption, of how public officials are stealing 1 billion, 20 billion, 100 billion, you know, all manner of, you know, corruption cases. So there's a major accountability issue. And that, of course, creates an issue of trust about the fact that, okay, even these taxes we are paying, are we getting value for it? So there's a moral issue. Of course, that is not to excuse tax default, because it's a statutory thing. What we need to do is to ensure that our governments are held accountable. And that's our own responsibility as citizens.
Right. You
know, so as much as possible, we should do that. But what is peculiar to this particular tax is that it's not going to a common purse. It's going to just only the office of the National Security Advisor. If we are talking of about 2 trillion going to that place, I mean, what value? I'm not saying that security is not important, but this is just a small segment of the security apparatus. If this money was going to the Federation account, or going to support all the armed forces, or going to support road construction, financing of education, it's a different conversation. But this is just going to the office of the National Security Advisor. It's not as if they are not even being funded ab initio. So there has to also be equity even in the distribution and allocation of government resources to reflect what the needs of the people are. No, that is also very fundamental. So the moral issue, of course, is very important, because many of the things that in other countries are taken for granted, you have to provide it yourself. You know, you send your children to private schools, very expensive. If you are sick, you go to private hospital, very expensive. You don't have public water supply, you have to go and dig borehole. You know, these are things that, even security. Is there any estate anywhere in the city that you don't have your own security guards? You have to be imposing levy on the citizens. All of these things don't happen in all these claims that people say that the level of tax is high. You know? So a lot of things that normally the government should provide, you are also providing, which in a sense is also a form of taxation. Because if the government had provided it, that would have saved you some money. But the government didn't provide it. You have to go and spend exorbitantly to fund your children's education, to fund your health. So sometimes you even construct roads to some of your locations. You have to provide security. You know, so there is a case to be made, you know, for ensuring a stronger moral basis for taxation. But that is an accountability issue, and that is something that as citizens we need to also play our role in holding government accountable.
Right.
We need to ensure that our representatives in the legislature do what they are supposed to do.
Well, finally, before I let you go, Dr. Muda, let's talk about the informal sector. As we know, the informal sector constitutes the majority of the economy, but we would see that taxation mostly happens in the formal sector. And the plan of this government was to widen the tax bracket, which means that bring more people into the tax net. Rather than overtax a certain amount of people, you have more people, which would of course directly translate to more taxation. But like we said earlier in the conversation, the informal sector is largely unregulated. So how do we go about bringing an unregulated sector into the tax bracket? How do we go about taxing, I beg your pardon, the informal sector without having to overstretch those who are in the formal sector, so it's evenly distributed across board? And of course, like you said, there has to be equity so that the determination of this tax rate is based on the revenue of these individuals, those in the informal sector and those in the formal sector. So my question, to simplify things, is how do we bring on board those in the informal sector, which constitute largely the economy of the country?
Yes, I agree with you. The informal sector is a big part of the economy. Actually, they are accounting for close to 50%. You know, of the is to create an environment that will encourage informal sectors operators to be formal. You know, encourage them through incentives, through advocacy, that they are part of this economy, and there is something to benefit from being in the formal sector of the economy. So the more of them that you can get attention, at least the better for us in terms of getting more of them to be in the tax net. And we must show some benefits for them, so that it's not just about, you know, clean part of the formal sector. That is one. Secondly, is the fact that not all taxes are direct taxes. There is indirect tax, just from their salaries and all of that, and remit directly. Because we are dealing with very how much people are earning. Because they don't keep accounts, they don't have records, so there is not for an economy. In other words, you must pay very. If they are building mansions, there has to be property tax. So when they have the money, they will spend it one way or the other. So you wait for them at the point where they are spending the money, and you tax what they are spending the money on. So that is indirect taxation. You may not be able to go after them one by one, but there must be a time. Of course, a lot of these things are imported anyway. So you can tax them at the point of importation. So you tax what people consume, what they import, what they use, what they spend money on, because those spending will be proportional to their income. So generally, and that is why there is argument in some quarters that we should be looking at increasing the VAT, you know, because our VAT is one of the lowest, actually, in Africa and possibly in the world.
7.5%.
But VAT is essentially something like consumption tax. So that is the strategy to deal with this. You can't just jump into Jankara market or Balogun and say you want to be taxing people. The mob will attack you. But if you have this strategy of waiting for them where they are spending or where they are buying things, then you can get them taxed appropriately. So that is the way to go about. But in any case, even if you go to all this informal sector, there are all manner of informal taxes there.
Yes.
Even the Alabaru, these people that carry load for people, they pay taxes.
Yes.
I was listening to some story recently that even beggars, where you are seated, you have to pay some tax.
For the space you occupy, yes.
No. Yeah, for the space. All these area boys, they have occupied that space and they are collecting taxes. You know, so go to the market. There is nobody there. In fact, their taxes are daily. every day you have to pay. But you should find a way, to formalize all of these things. But just as I said, we need to emphasize more of indirect taxation because of the structure of the economy.
Right. Dr. MUDA YUSUF, thank you so very much for the time you've been able to afford us this evening. We appreciate you. We hope that on another day we're able to catch you when you're able to expend us more time. But regardless, we appreciate you for your insight. Dr. MUDA YUSUF is the former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's an economist and the CEO Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. And the conversation was around multiple taxation, compliance, and expected reward. Dr. MUDA YUSUF, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you
very much
for joining us. Yes.
Thank you, my pleasure. Bye.
Of course. Like I said before, there's still many questions that we had for Dr. MUDA YUSUF, but he had other commitment. He has to get on another endeavor. But at least we're able to talk about, you heard Dr. MUDA emphasize, thankfully, that this is not a levy or a tax that is being enjoyed by the bank or the CBN. It's something that will be remitted to the Office of the National Security Advisor for cyber security or cyber protection, whichever you find most convenient. But we just use that particular incident to usher us into the conversation of multiple taxation. We are paying quite a number of tax. I told you our company tax or corporate tax rates, let's put it like that, the CIT, is actually one of the highest in the world. For Africa, the average tax for company tax rate is actually about 27.6%, but Nigeria alone is paying 34%. That's what they take from the people. But then again, like I said when I was speaking to Dr. MUDA YUSUF, a lot of government supporters, a lot of those who are stakeholders within the government will argue that Nigeria isn't even paying that much tax. We're not paying as much as we think we're paying. There are more countries, there are African countries that pay more than we do. Ivory Coast, for example, they pay a lot with them, and there's hardly any complaint about the tax. But then they're able to drink water. The economy is at least functional by virtue of the taxes that they're paying. But is it the same story here in Nigeria? I also wanted us to have a conversation on tax waivers, but like I said, Dr. MUDA had to leave the conversation of tax waivers where the elite are the ones who enjoy these tax waivers, who enjoy tax holidays or tax forgiveness, where they're not made to pay certain taxes because apparently their businesses would have advantages for the economy in the long run. Others will say that why not offer these benefits to the small business owners, the SMEs, the MSMEs? Why not grant them tax forgiveness, since they mostly constitute the informal sector and they are one of the largest employers of labor? Why is it the elites? Why is it those 5 people who are billionaires that you're granting tax holidays? Why are they the ones that you're granting tax forgiveness? Why not grant that small business owner who has 5 employees and has to use probably half of their profit to pay taxes? Why not grant that small business owner tax forgiveness so that they're able to function optimally, they're able to grow, and they're able to employ more people? These are conversations that I want us to have. We're going to have to open the phone line at this point. You have heard from Dr. MUDA YUSUF. Do you agree with his perspective? Do you disagree? Do you have a contrary argument? Do you have areas you want us to explore when it comes to solving the problem of multiplicity of taxes? If you were granted an opportunity to speak to, I don't know, the chairman of the FIRS, Zak Adedeji, what advice would you give? If you were allowed an opportunity to speak to a representative of the federal government regarding reviewing our tax legislation, what would you say? That's what I want to hear from you when you call in this evening as we talk about multiplicity of taxes in the country. Let me start by reading some of the Facebook messages that we've gotten, and then it's straight to the phone line. Kabiru Adegbenro on Facebook sent a message and said, I think cybersecurity tax should be suspended because people are going through pain. The government should think about how the people would have some relief. God bless Nigeria. Thank you very much, Mr. Kabiru. We have a message here from Victor on Facebook. Victor says, good evening, Madam Sage. This president's way of taxing Nigerians here and there is becoming unbearable. It's a pathetic situation that we found ourselves in the country. Victor from Ojodu. Thank you so very much, Victor. Isa Benjamin on Facebook says, good evening, Sage. multiple taxes continue to increase from the federal government to the local government. You can see President Tinubu is looking for the next tax to add. It is not funny at all because these taxes are adding more pains to Nigerians. The National Assembly are looking for more money to share, to say the least. They are in their comfort zone and they don't care about the pain that those who elected them are passing through. Benjamin from Shogunle. Thank you very much, Benjamin. Onigba Ibrahim, I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong, forgive me. He says, this said tax, is it applicable for both deposit and withdrawal? It actually would be initiated at the point of transfer. So I believe it's the person who is initiating the transaction. If you are sending money to someone, it will be deducted from you because you're the one initiating the transaction. That's what it says. If you're the one sending money or performing the electronic transaction, that the levy will be deducted from you that is initiating. So I hope that answers your question. Let's go to the phones and see what people have to say this evening. Hello, you're live. Okay, please call back. Hello,
sir. Good evening. This should be calling from Ikeja.
Welcome, Mr. Obi. Good evening.
Yeah, stay there. I beg to disagree with your guest.
Okay.
Now, the Côte d'Ivoire cannot pay. I guess okay. They could be paying more
Ivory
direct
Coast. Ivory Coast.
That's Côte d'Ivoire. Ivory Coast. Yeah, that's Côte d'Ivoire. They could be paying more direct taxes, but when it comes to indirect taxes, no country in this world can pay taxes more than Nigeria. We provide our security in our state. Some places they have 3 securities they have to pay. Front one, middle one. We provide energy for ourselves, water for ourselves. Some places we grade the roads. Do some estates they tie their roads. Some estates they buy their transformers. What are we doing? America cannot even try. If American citizens try this, they will go bankrupt. So Nigerians were paying too much when it comes to indirect taxes. And when they can harmonize it, you see that it will be easier for people. Despite all these taxes, we are not seeing anything commensurate to what we're paying. When it comes to that, please, let's this directive, take it up. The indirect taxes we are paying is more deadlier than the direct taxes you see that other countries are paying. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you for your call. Well, let's put it in proper perspective. There's the report by the World Population Review. Ivory Coast is the highest tax country in Africa and the highest in the world when it comes to personal income tax. There are different taxes. For personal income tax, Ivory Coast actually pays the most according to that particular report. But when it comes to corporate tax, Nigeria pays the most, 34%. So these are different taxes, and these countries pay higher when it comes to the different taxes. So for corporate tax, that's for businesses. To simplify it, the taxes that businesses pay is a lot, one of the highest in the world in Nigeria. But when it comes to personal income tax, for example, the taxes that they take from your salary, Ivory Coast is known to pay more. So I'm trying to simplify this so we get it. Yes, we pay a lot of taxes, 34%, like I said, for corporate tax. Ivory Coast pays a lot, one of the highest in the world when it comes to personal income tax. So let's put this in perspective. I actually would like to hear from drivers, for example, bus drivers, transporters, those who pay all these taxes. I remember that in Lagos State, for example, there was a plan to harmonize the tax such that you pay 800 naira every day. And so every time you're stopped, you can show them your receipts. I have paid my 800 naira transport tax, and that's it for the day. Has this been implemented in Lagos State? How many taxes, how many levies do you pay as a driver, as a transporter in Lagos? Do you still pay that 800 naira tax? I would like to hear from the horse's mouth as you call into the program. This is still the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Multiplicity of taxes is what we're talking about. We're also highlighting tax compliance. Do you think Nigerians are willing to pay the tax? The only reason why there's kickback is because there is no evidence. There's nothing that shows that they're going to enjoy the benefit of the tax they are paying. I beg your pardon. And also, if you are somebody who pays your tax regularly, what exactly do you expect from the government? These are some of the questions I would like you to answer as you call into the station this evening. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, good evening to you, sir. Do you mind turning down your radio, please?
I'll turn it down.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Collecting taxes is the bane of government. And in Nigeria, tax collection is non-existent at all. People are allowed to create business and do business all over the place without much ado about taxes. You can't try that in advanced countries. You can't even open a shop like that anywhere. You they will tax you to you pack up. So taxing in Nigeria is still at the minimal level. But I can understand the taxes where these people, these area boys collect. This where the government should work on and stop people. Look at if you enter Danfo now, they collect lots of taxes from these drivers, and the commuters pay. To pay. When you go to the bus stop, the Agberoja will say this is how much he should collect, and that's how much he will collect for that particular Danfo. If it's 200, it's 200, they collect 200 from them. If it's 300, they collect 300 from the passengers. So these are where I think the government should work on, and all sorts of taxes, indirect taxes all over Lagos. But as far as taxing is concerned, government is not collecting taxes in this country at all.
You think the taxes are still too small? The taxes that we pay are quite small in comparison, right?
Like what your guest said. People take champagne, buy these, buy that, build mansions. They don't tax them. You see, it's exploitative. They don't tax them, and they just go away with this thing. It's not possible in advanced countries.
Okay.
They have to do something to make sure people pay taxes. They should pay taxes. You can't just be flexing your muscle after exploiting the populace.
Thank you.
So you are doing business. And you do business, you say you do business, you make money, and you are not paying tax.
Have a great day. Thank you so much for calling. Yes. Hello. Hello? Yes, good evening.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Okay. My name is Peter. I'm calling from Uluja.
All right, please go ahead.
Actually, I'm not against taxes. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
But this problem, the case of Nigerian government is just like maybe one having a friend or maybe having a partner, and that partner kept on hustling. And when that partner hurts you, you be crying. So if that partner says, I've hurt my partner. let me stop doing what to do for my partner. So that partner kept on hurting our partner. That is how this Nigerian government is. Are you hearing me?
I'm with you.
Now, if you look at let me just say the Western world, when they pay multiple taxes, but they see the value. They get the value for their taxes. Now, look at what our debt. Just let me even use market as an example. Page. Go to market. Go and see what they are doing to market women. Go to market. Go to market. Go and see what they are doing to market women. Somebody killing pure water, hot pure water. How much What can they collect of those pure water? Those on that sort. What kind of government is this? What kind of wicked and heartless government is this? What kind of wicked to look at beggar?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's allow the people an opportunity to call in and speak as well. Thank you very much. We appreciate you for your submission. Multiplicity of taxes is the conversation for today. 0.5% on electronic transfers. Of course, there are about 16 exemptions, right? Like interbank transaction, loans, etc., etc. These levy or this particular levy does not apply. What do you think about that memo? First of all, the 0.5%. Oh, and that reminds me, the processing fee, the one that was reinitiated yesterday, the federal government just put out an announcement that they're suspending that till the 30th of September. So they have relaxed the processing fee for now. I don't know if that poses as some form of respite for you. I don't know if you consider that some sort of good news, but they suspended the processing fee again for the second time till the 30th of September. I believe this is against the backdrop of the outrage that average Nigerians have shown, or Nigerians in general, business owners have shown, and also projections suggestions that a lot of stakeholders in the business landscape have given to the government, that businesses will pack up if you continue to impose these taxes at the same time, simultaneously, at the same time as you're removing subsidy, you're taxing people. Businesses will pack up, individuals, the disposable income of families will be depleted, and you would have a situation on your hand. Also, bear in mind that the inflation is well above 30%. It's one of the highest that we've recorded in years, maybe even decades, maybe even in a decade that we've seen. So these are considerations when it comes to all of the many taxes that people are paying. And don't forget that the explanation or the justification that the federal government has given for this decision to go on an aggressive revenue drive by means of tax is because they are intending to diversify the economy. They say we cannot keep relying on crude revenue. How then can we get more revenue for the government without over-reliance on crude? And taxation came into play. Let's get the money via taxation. What other means do you think we can generate revenue for the government? One that would not cause too much pain on the people. Remember, there are many sectors. We have our we can export, we have our solid minerals, we have tourism, amongst we even have our human capital. As a human capital is a very heavy resource. That's why you see most of our people leaving the country in other places, the brain drain. We can use this to our own benefit. We can loan doctors to countries. It's a system that has worked in some other countries. We can loan doctors and we get paid as a country. If there's a deficit of welders, if there's a deficit of nurses in a country, you can reach an agreement with Nigeria, loan us certain doctors, and we would pay you certain amount of money, as well as remunerate the doctors in question, remunerate the welders in question. Do you understand? These are methods that many experts have advised the government to generate revenue. So if we're up to you, what other means do you think we can diversify the economy without this heavy taxation on Nigerians? 091360000410 is the phone line. If you'd like to send a text message or a WhatsApp message, please do so via the number 091360000430. I'm back to the phone line now. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm with you. Welcome.
You said they want to diversify the economy. That's why they want to diversify their pocket. That's what I'm telling you. The other person said they are not paying tax. Nigerians are not paying tax. So the one who have been paying things, what are they doing with it?
No, he means the elites. You know, the elite, the rich ones who get tax forgiveness, that they should pay more taxes. That's what he meant.
My sister, and you see, because of what is going on in government, you watch and see how they are buying cars for themselves, buy jeeps for themselves, for their wives, and all kinds of things. It's a disincentive. Look at even the name of this recent one. They say cyber security, a security something. It's that thing alone, that name alone, is showing us that they want to collect the money for another thing. When did the office of NSA become a central bank? So people are not happy. Let me tell you what happens in the market where I am. What we do now is that you have goods you want to buy, you collect money from the one you have sold today and give your colleague or whoever you want to buy goods with. A lot of money now is exchanging hands outside the bank. So that's what's happening now. They will be collecting their tax. They will not see us. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Okangumi. I appreciate you. Hello, good evening.
You?
Yes, good evening. Mainland FM.
Yes, this is Mr. Sunday, calling from Ikeja.
Welcome, Mr. Sunday. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. See, this from my own understanding, this government is to suck the citizen of this country. They will suck us all until nothing to suck again. You know when human being does not have blood again in his body, you know what it means. This is what this government wants to do. They want to suck the citizen all. Tax us everywhere. Stop everybody until we fall down. They are just talking about like vampires. I see them like vampires. I know that what I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
How are you doing now?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, you have all about that.
It's been a while. Nice to have you.
Yeah, pleasure. How are you doing?
Very well, very well.
Yeah, you know, not just quite long that Forward and we just rounded up on the program, and I have opportunity to make call to phone in. It's quite unfortunate. Even if we are APC member, we are in community, we are on street, we are on many places that we see the way people are living. Even if at all we were living a bit good, what about others? What about those people that we campaign to? What about those people that voted for our party? Party need to put in place. That in put light forward. That let it find solution that everything will get to the doorstep of the president. Those who are closer to the president, let them hear what is going on. People are providing solution. Now, I made some transactions this afternoon. I found out that electronic money transfer levy, they deducted 50 naira. This cyber security levy now, what is the difference between cyber security levy and electronic money transfer? I want to ask questions, and I want to ask your guest if our is coming back on there.
괰ᴜ we actually have to suspend this conversation briefly because we need to take the headline news. All right, so yeah, please, or if you're unable to reach us, just send a message. But I'd appreciate if you can call. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Let's go on a quick break as we have to take the headline news at 5 p.m. Don't go anywhere. We're talking about multiplicity of taxes or multiple taxation in the country. We want to talk about why Nigerians do not comply with tax payment, why there's always pushback when there's the announcement of a new tax. And for those of you who pay your taxes, what are your expectations of the government, more specifically the cybersecurity tax? What is your take on that subject matter? My name is Sage Babalola. You're still listening to the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM. After the headline news, we take a few commercials and we would of course continue the conversation. This is the sound of Lagos, Mainland 98.3 FM. Don't go anywhere.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign.
You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.
Headline news on 98.3 Mainland FM.
Good evening. Headline news on Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Omobola Sandra. President Tinubu returns to Nigeria after 2 weeks of absence. Rivers APC urges 27 assembly members to impeach Fubara. Ekiti Varsity expels 2 students for assault. Senate launches investigation into failure of $18.5 billion Abuja Centenary Project. TUC threatens nationwide shutdown due to cybersecurity levy. On the foreign scene, pro-Palestinian protest in Amsterdam turns violent. Landslides and massive flooding kill dozens in Brazil. In sports, Minnesota Timberwolves center Rudy Gobert wins 4th NBA Defensive Player of the Year award. That's the headline news on Mainland FM. Details at 5:30.
Mainland 98.3 FM, your number 1 radio. Reaching stars, the sound of Lagos.
To cook correct food, they always give me joy. That's why anytime when they cook like this, I dey always season them with no cubes. Come add correct vegetables inside. Ugu, tatashe, shombo, onions. No one wey I no dey put. Na him make my pikin dem dey always enjoy my cooking.
Daddy, I never belle I want more.
You see? Sama all your food with correct vegetables. Come season am with no cubes for that ogbonge delicious taste. Today, chop better.
New Lafarge water shield cement na confirm. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. New Lafarge water shield cement number one. New Lafarge waterproof cement na confirm. Good full stop for water wahala. With Lafarge water shield cement, water go collect. If water jam house, foundation and basement to call. No shame, ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Lafarge, no confirm. Cement, new Lafarge water shield cement na confirm.
Put full stop for water wahala.
Follow us on all our social media platforms on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. On Twitter at Mainland FM. We are the sound of Lagos.
Who takes a plate of jollof rice to the next level of goodness? Is it when it is cooked with non-seasoning cubes for that sumptuous taste? Or when you serve it with correct Nigerian salad, cabbage, carrot, lettuce, and a bit of kidney beans?
It's both. Season your jollof with the rich taste of Knorr cubes and serve with plenty of vegetables. So, go ahead and elevate your meals. Today, eat for good.
New Lafarge water shield cement na confirm. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. New Lafarge water shield cement number one. New Lafarge waterproof cement na confirm. Good full stop for water wahala. With Lafarge water shield cement, water go collect. If water jam house, foundation and basement to call. No shame, ogbonge cement for waterlogged areas. Number one waterproof cement for Naija. Lafarge, no confirm. Cement, new Lafarge water shield cement na confirm.
Put full stop for water wahala.
Meals have a way of taking us on a journey, and when you add plenty of vegetables like efo, ugu, and season with the rich taste of non-seasoning cubes, even better.
So, go ahead and elevate your meals with more vegetables and the rich taste of Knorr cubes. Today, eat for good.
You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.
Things seem anxious and uncertain. I understand the hardship you face. I wish there were other ways, but there is not. If there were,
in our quest to bring to the table issue-based conversation around nationhood and development, we have made 4 to 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday the perfect time to welcome you into the Situation Room as we continue to build the narrative about public service and accountability.
Mr. President, this Senate needs to know. Mr. President, this Senate needs to lend its voice to the plight of these people. Mr. President, there is nowhere I can say it except here. This is why I'm elected. If I cannot say these things on this floor, sir, I better resign and leave.
As elections give the citizens the chance to make their political decisions, constant demand for quality leadership from those they voted into office.
Look at us, man, there is nothing. We are starving. We should please do something.
It's also important to having a Nigeria of everyone's dream. Join WG=SAW as it takes to task seasoned analysts, opinion makers, business professionals, and politicians on issues around politics, policies, governance, and leadership. Every Monday to Friday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. on your super dial, Mainland 98.3 FM will welcome you your next as we discuss the situations.
Welcome back and thank you for standing by. You are still onto the Situation Room on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Interesting conversation so far. Taking feedback from you, hearing your thoughts on the opinions of the guest that we had, Dr. MUDA YUSUF, former LCCI DG. He's an economist as well, and a lot of you have disagreed with some of his perspective, and you have gone further to provide us with your own idea when it comes to tackling multiplicity of taxes in the country. We are talking about what taxation is like in the country, the aggressive revenue drive of the federal government in a bid to diversify the economy, the process involved in tax determination, how the elites enjoy the privilege of tax forgiveness, tax waivers, even foreign direct investment or foreigners in the country enjoy tax waivers, tax forgiveness, tax holidays, but small businesses do not enjoy those privileges. So why is that the case? These are some of the questions that we've raised on the program today. And also, tax is a responsibility of the citizenry. Taxation is necessary. There are countries of the world that rely mostly, if not only, on the taxes that they get from the people, but then complaints are minimal because these individuals apparently enjoy the dividend of the taxes that they pay. If we see a replication of that incident in Nigeria, will Nigerians maybe stop complaining about the taxes that we pay? If we see infrastructure that is commensurate with the taxes that we pay, will the complaints become minimal? This is another question that we've asked on the program today. Also, we're talking about the multiple agencies that collect taxes. The FIRS, for example, is the one that's supposed to solely be responsible for the collection of taxes. But even Zak Adedeji, the chairman of the FIRS, have said we have about 62 agencies that are collecting taxes on behalf of the government. Why is that the case? How do we go about harmonization of taxes and also tax collection and corruption? Corruption has eaten deep into the fabric of our society, of our economy, and even a process as taxation that is supposed to be a symbiotic relationship between the people and the government has become chaotic. So these are some of the angles. I'm just summarizing some of the angles that you can present your opinion through. You can tell us what you think about this particular angles that have been provided to you. And in a bid to diversify the economy, if you think taxation is not convenient, what other ways do you think we can diversify the economy and generate revenue for the government? The phone line is open, 0913-6000-410. You can send a text message or a WhatsApp message to 0913-6000-430. We're live on Facebook and on YouTube, facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM. On YouTube, we're at Mainland FM. Let's take phone calls before we go to our Facebook platform. Hello. Good evening. We can barely hear you. The connection is terrible, sir.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, let's work with this. Let's work with this. Let's manage this. Go ahead, please.
Okay. My question I want to ask you is
I'm so sorry. I don't think there's any way to manage this. If you don't mind calling back, I would definitely appreciate. I'm so sorry because what's the point of talking to us if we can't hear you? I want you to also be able to communicate. So please call back, and if you cannot, send a text message or a WhatsApp message or join us on our live stream on Facebook. Thank you very much for calling. Hello.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is 괘ᴏ from Parkview.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead, sir.
One, I want to appreciate BABALOLA something. I like people that sometimes when it is wrong, you say it as it is. And I know it's strong about PPC, but I think for some time I'll be saying the truth. I must appreciate him, and this man Kayode from Abeokuta, I appreciate them. About this type of a thing, why people are not paying tax in Nigeria? Because the more you pay tax, the more money ends in some people's pocket. That is just. But the more they make money, the more the people are suffering. That is just people are very, very patient. I don't know whether you enter BRS because that so the government is lying to us. Very really.
Good evening. It's why it's my commitment.
Because it was you strength to me. Out of my money, your money, and the money the matter still the court of law. It's just very glad.
Good evening. Have a great day. I'm an orphan. 21% of my total take home. let me just say inadequacy. That's not the word he used, but you get it. We're simply funding you have to. If you want to enjoy public, here says the only thing Nigeria home, they should go corruption. Limited time we have